Our dear students, particularly from Croatia, Bulgaria, and Greece, it's always a pleasure to share experience, but it's never so easy to get one of the most renowned world scholars, not only as a professor, but only as a researcher, and as kind of shaping the arena, I would call our professor Anja, of new thinkers and global approach towards interdisciplinary fighting anti-corruption. So Anja, it's a great pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
I personally learned a lot from you, and I'm sure that our students will enjoy, maybe not enjoy, but they will have to read our publications that we are preparing. Can you maybe share with us, after we finish the panel on national, regional, and global anti-corruption, can you tell us from your European US experience, from philosopher, human rights activists, who has to deal with maybe sometimes criminal lawyers in approaching international fight against corruption? And as a woman scholar and professor, chapeau, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm overwhelmed by that introduction, but I too am very honored to be working with Professor Sunčana Roksandić, and together we have published a special issue on crime and corruption that is indeed very interdisciplinary and very broad in the topics and themes that it covers, both petty corruption and grand corruption, which is an emerging international norm and quite controversial, as is also the case with other international norms that are emerging, like ecocide and gender apartheid. So philosophers by training, which is what I am, can contribute the more critical thinking approaches.
True.
Together with disciplines that criminal attorneys such as Sunčana are also well aware of. But we can maybe do things differently, be more conceptual, more detailed in philosophical analysis, and with that hopefully pave the path for some new discoveries. So a lot of the work that philosophers do is experimental. We work with
What do you
premises.
mean? Can you explain to us, what does that mean, experimental?
When we read work, for example, if we read Milton Friedman, Capitalism and Freedom, that we also discussed at the panel, and we read it with philosophical and/or ethical glasses on, then we are not looking for what Milton Friedman is primarily pursuing because he's an economist.
Okay.
But instead we are looking for the bigger picture, the theoretical framework, and we already have a lot of literature on him. So we know from his successors, such as Robert Edward Freeman, that his thinking is too narrow for our contemporary world. And this is in the business sector, the private sector, but it's also more than that, especially if you are a modern stakeholder theorist such as Freeman. Then you begin to incorporate and integrate more than just the descriptive, but also the normative and prescriptive, make recommendations, combine pragmatic and idealistic approaches. When I look at that, I'm also looking at an American philosopher, so somebody just like me.
Okay.
True. Unlike Freeman, I also integrate international law because I'm interested in the same types of themes and topics as you are. So I will be more selective.
Okay.
But I actually use the whole framework, all the premises, such as the free market forces, the basic rules of the game, the political economy and the view of capitalism. ideas about the free market itself, laissez-faire, responsive capitalism, and make discoveries with that can be useful for when you work with corruption, such as, just one example,
Okay.
that if you look critically at Milton Friedman's work, you can see that he has a notion of injustice, such as depriving an individual of his or her equal freedom.
That fits with consequences of corruption.
Right.
And actually, okay, so
But when we make that discovery, we also make another one, and that is that Milton Friedman, because he's a free market thinker, doesn't find it problematic if you are giving your informed consent to a particular exchange or practice.
even if it is corrupt one.
Well, if it's corrupt to the extent that it becomes deception, in which case it then deprives you of your ability to make a free choice for yourself.
Okay.
Then it's criminal, basically in every sense of that word. It's unethical, and he would also want it to be illegal, just as we should obey the law. But bribery falls through the filter, because bribery can be a quid pro quo, where both parties...
It could, but ideally that could happen if the both parties are equally developed. Right, so if I have no chance, no other option but to actually give a bribe or accept a bribe, then that it wouldn't fit to the informed consent that you were talking about.
No, it would begin to become problematic.
Right, and this is the part that we did concentrate in our special edition on corruption and international criminal law, which I think it's extremely added value, particularly when we are talking about international criminal law, which was very skeptical towards addressing violations of economic, social, and cultural rights, and concentrated more on violations of civil and political rights. And that's why the research that we did also on health that you edited, bio-international law, right? Yes. And denial of health, we can see it in many conflicts that is happening through us, how important it is to approach it. Okay, it happens from your philosophical point of view, but maybe the fact that you are a woman, do you think that also influences the topics that you are choosing? Because of, I'm not going to say that women have more moral rights to deal with injustices, social inequality, but did that maybe influence, I'm not saying yes or no, but do you think that it has the influence on the choices of the topics that you are dealing with? Because based on your scholarship, which is impressive, you are dealing with the topics that I would put a common denominator, also addressing these injustices coming from violations of all human rights.
Right. I mean, I think I gravitate a lot towards justice studies.
Right.
It's very broad to say I'm interested in post-conflict justice, transitional justice, but I can also narrow it more and say distributive justice. And if I do that, then, for example, a thinker like Milton Friedman can no longer be of relevance.
That's why I asked you, right?
Yes,
yeah,
because this is where he sees himself as a adherent to classical liberalism, John Stuart Mill and other types of thinkers, but he's much more radical than that. He's a libertarian. When you are a libertarian, you are against distributive measures, even if they are for justice, that are mandatory or made imposed on you. And so therefore, he would say, well, I believe there's a justice issue if you just begin to redistribute resources and goods just because you think that there is a problem. And when we look at those premises, we can construct the rationale. It's because for him, ethics begins and ends with subjectivism and relativism. And the third basic rule of the game is, in fact, respect for ethical custom. So he can never really come into the territory where I am with anything that I could make use of. Because I think in more objective terms, I actually believe
you do, and I coming from southern eastern European region, or part of it is central. Okay, I'm not going to talk about now complexity of understanding where Croatia is, but actually I was always very skeptical of the term customary norms, you know, cultural relativism. So what does that mean? That means if it is okay that I don't give informed consent when I go to the physician in some parts of the world, does it mean when I'm a pharmaceutical company and I come there that it's quite okay that I don't ask a subject for consent on different experiments and research, that I ask a village chief and then, for instance, my child dies as a consequence that I was given experimental drug for. Right. Or when somebody uses, no, it's okay in some parts of the world to give a bribe, but it's not. Right. Even if it is okay in some parts of the world to be killed, it's not okay for me to kill. That's why I'm rather skeptical when we came to this part. Okay, accepting the bribes are fine somewhere.
But there are places where you would see a bribe as a way around the red tape.
True.
So that is unnecessary. There are unnecessary obstructions, and you have to survive as a business, for example.
I know.
And therefore, that's a way around it. So the justice discourse can continue on that note for them. But you are right that, and that is interesting that you say that, because I've always had that same skepticism that just because it's cultural or just because it's customary, then we somehow have to bow down. So I'm much more attracted to thinking about things in terms of right or wrong as a matter of principle.
Exactly, and then we feel what it is, and that's why building integrity is extremely important. And we talked about UNCAC provision. UN Convention Against Corruption is the most widely accepted instrument.
Yes.
So every country, almost two, I think, are not part of it. Maybe that's changed. And if it did that, so that means that we have a common rules on the offenses that we have to have and that we might have in our national system, and prevention side. And then building integrity becomes the rules of the game for everybody. And then we cannot claim that custom is okay and then it has long-term consequences for human rights in that region, etc.
Right. I mean, that's also the vision and the aspiration,
True.
And maybe even dreamlike in some scenarios behind peremptory norms of general international law.
True.
I mean, that's really the precursor for you and me sitting here and sharing this skepticism. That's the route we would like to go, so that the big questions mark for something that is pretty obvious, such as, is corruption right or wrong? Is it wrong to take advantage? Is it wrong to do something just for your own gain? Yes or no? That we can maybe progress and move on and become preoccupied with other challenges. So it's still at an early stage, because we are actually fighting corruption as corruption in its
True, particularly as corruption does erode societies and rule of law, and does prevent the society to come to a certain level, because you always have those who exploit and those who are exploited. And then again, if we are on the same level of development, then we come to the first point you made, then we have a true contract and things are fine.
Right.
But when we are not on the equal basis, then especially in international business and international political white-collar crime, we have a problem. But that's why we are continuing our work, our scientific work, our conference work, our workshop, and we really do believe that our dear students will take what have you heard today seriously, address it in your joint work and workshop, and we will continue to enjoy the brain of our Professor Anja and the consequences that come from the research that we are doing together and separately. So Thank you very much for
Thank
having
you,
you.
Sunčana.